there can be some sort of a directive to allow easy public access, because some of these museums are inside the premises of certain organizations. So either you have certain days or, some sort of a, with wide publicity that people who want to come and see. It's good for the yard also, people get to know, the city gets to know as to their contribution to nation building, etc.
The National Maritime Heritage Complex, as it is called, that's coming up in Lothal, and that's really huge. So I was associated in the curatorial committee and other way for about 3 years, from 99 to 22. Subsequently, I've been in touch because lots of people one knows has been working. There's lots of work going on there, and that is intended to be this mega project, almost Disneyland like, but it's spread over, I think, 400 acres. So 5,000 crore project. You got some of the best architects, best engineers working on the infra. So they've roped in a lot of experts in archaeology, in anthropology, in history, in the curatorial committee. The Navy has been playing a very active role through the Maritime History Society. The Naval Gallery, it has 13 galleries, sir.
Okay.
13, each for different eras. And the Naval Gallery is the largest, where MH.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Dabble Dialogues. I'm delighted to have as my guest today Commodore Srikant Kesnur, a good friend, colleague from the Navy, and who's been doing some excellent work on building a maritime ethos in the country. So let me first briefly start about his career. He commanded the Leander class frigate Vindhyagiri. Thereafter was our DA, our defense attaché in Nairobi. And did you have Somalia also with you at that time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then went to command our, only LPD, that is Jalashwa. Soon after, I think she was commissioned. Then was the deputy commandant of the Naval War College here in Goa for a short while, and then went on to first be the director of our Maritime Warfare Center in Vizag, and then the Maritime Warfare Center in Mumbai.
Yes.
And while doing the job in Mumbai, he was also dual-hatted as looking after the Naval History Project.
Sure.
And I know that you've been interested in history right through, but that must have, been a catalyst to the entire process from an institutional standpoint.
Absolutely.
Right now, he's writing a book on Admiral Mickey Roy, being co-authored with Mr. Swaroop Anand, and does a lot of other work. I mean, you switch on any podcast or any, I think, social media site, and if you're looking maritime in India, I'm sure Srikant Kesnur is one of the first names to pop up.
Sure.
So thank you, Srikant, for coming over here. And I thought, since you've really been in this business for a long time, can you tell us for a start, where do we stand? I mean, if you see from a maritime understanding in the country, right? And thereafter we can do what we can do about it. But where do you think is the base level right now?
So, first, of course, great honor to be on your program. I can assure you, it's making a lot of waves. It's gained traction very quickly, and I think it's privileged to be on the Double Dialogue. Specifically, the answer to your question, sir, I would think it's a glass half full. There is a bit of maritime awareness. It is a rising tide, but I wish lot more could be done. Because I still think, as we were discussing earlier, it's an area where the Navy is doing heavy lifting, but the rest of, say, the think tanks, the academia, and above all, the common people, the citizens, we could do with a bit more of maritime in our veins.
But actually, it's unfortunate because as a nation, I mean, we are a peninsular nation which is so dependent on the sea. And logically, you would expect that, our awareness on all matters maritime would be much higher. It's unfortunate that it's not there as yet. So what do you think needs to be done in this respect? And what was a roadmap really to increase this awareness?
Sir, actually, it has to be a combination. I mean, there is that old paradigm of whole of government, of whole of society approach. We need to attack from various prongs. But One way to remember, sir, history gives us a lot of clues, so to say. So, as I said yesterday also, we have this is 1,000 years of Rajendra Chola's expedition to Sumatra, Java, to Indonesia, and just yesterday the Prime Minister was in the capital, Gangaikonda Cholapuram, sort of commemorating that event. So this year is 1,000 years of the Great Chola expedition. This also is the 500th year. Vasco da Gama died in Kochi on Christmas Eve in 1524.
Okay, I didn't
So
know
it's
that.
500 years of another epoch. So the first epoch tells you that if you tack to the seas, uh, you are a country that can be prosperous, rich, civilizationally and culturally vibrant. And the second one tells you that if
If you
you
don't,
don't and you're blind to the seas, you get colonized and impoverished and everything that follows. So we have to be more aware of this historically through various points. Like you brought out geography, peninsula, centrality, what we keep saying. And to some extent, perhaps people are aware, though our threat perception seems to be north oriented. But history, trade, all of these should point out to that directions. So, again, the answer is that probably while the Navy is doing its bit, and maybe we could do more, I think more of academic bodies, more of think tanks, more of individuals and veterans, if we could all pull together in that direction, I guess it would.
yeah, but what are the best vehicles to use? Because these days,
So,
there's just so much information that is available that people's bandwidth gets slightly constrained. It's information overload. You have to make it attractive. You have to make it a package that people want to see. There has to be a pull factor that has to come in. So, which do you think are the best mediums to take this forward? And how do you get that pull factor in, from people?
so you said it. Now, I'm a great fan, having begun in a sense on the academic side and writing long articles and stuff like that. You realize after a while, at least that's my belief, that in that space you're often preaching to the converted. So I'm a great believer in what is called the pop or the popular medium, and I have sought to venture into that arena with some criticism from well-minded friends. But I believe pop is the way if you want to. I mean, sir, you take a movie like Ghazi Attack. It took a lot of cinematic license. It probably was not
A true
factually
representation, yeah.
correct, true representation, but it had a huge amount of pull factor when people wanted to see. So I believe that realm of cinema, popular cinema, perhaps theatre. You will remember how popular the Ken Mutiny Court Martial was when we were,
Young, yeah.
young. So theatre, cinema, radio, FM. I do a lot of FM radio shows. So these are the ways to go. Popular arts, we don't have too much of popular art compared to say Europe or America, where maritime themes are very very common. Museums are another way, and fortunately there's some good development happening there. Maybe even movies. I must tell you a very very amusing incident that a few years back on the day of the seafarer, I did a broadcast podcast with All India Radio. So after a serious discussion, suddenly the anchor asked me, "What's your favorite song about the seas?" And I was flummoxed. So I was hemming and hawing for 30 seconds trying to, because the only Retd song that came to my mind was Samandar mein naha kar tum aur bhi namkeen ho gayi ho, which I couldn't have said. And then suddenly it struck me. I said Sagar Kinare. So she said lovely. It went on. Later I thought, sir, that we have more songs about Chand,
Then about the
which
sea.
is which is so much away, and then the sea which is next to us. So I guess we have to find a way to get. I mean, the army and popularity of Air Force is largely because they use the pop medium perhaps better, or even if they don't use, people relate to that better through that. Navy is silent service. It's a little inscrutable. We operate beyond the horizon. We are confused with Coast Guard, Customs, this one. So I think that our story needs telling in a more vigorous way. And if you'll permit, sir, a couple of things we did towards when I was the OIC Naval History Project. Of course, the Navy was really behind that. One is we brought out a Amar Chitra Katha volume on the Navy, and that was really very good. Enjoyed it, and the soft copies are for free. I don't mind sharing it, and I think people should read that. We also did a series, sir, with Nehru Center, London, with Amish Tripathi, the famous author.
Yeah, I saw part of that.
Yeah, and he has a huge pull factor. He anchored, and we did a 5-part episode on the Navy in 71 war, because not many people know about the Navy in 71.
This was just last year, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this was about 2 or 3 years ago. So you perhaps need some sort of celebrity endorsement also. It may have its ups and downs, but I think pop is the route to go if you have to. If you have to.
So you mentioned museums, in briefly, and I'm aware that there's I think the National Maritime Museum which is coming up in Lothal. You
Yes,
are
sir.
involved with that project. Can you tell our viewers about what exactly is happening there, and maybe other museum projects which are happening in different locations across the country?
Yes, sir, absolutely. The National Maritime Heritage Complex, as it is called, that's coming up in Lothal, and that's really huge. So I was associated in the curatorial committee and other way from for about 3 years, from 99 to 22. Subsequently, I've been in touch because lots of people one knows has been working. There's lots of work going on there, and that is intended to be this mega project, almost Disneyland like, but it's spread over, I think, 400 acres. So 5,000 crore project. You got some of the best architects, best engineers working on the infra. So they've roped in a lot of experts in archaeology, in anthropology, in history, in the curatorial committee. The Navy has been playing a very active role through the Maritime History Society. The Naval Gallery, it has 13 galleries, sir. 13, each for different eras. And the Naval Gallery is the largest, where MHS is supported by the Navy, is playing a very good role. So I believe that the first part 1 is likely to be inaugurated next year, and then the follow on will happen. But it also envisages having a kind of for want of a better word, India International Center complex sort of thing, a seminar hall, auditorium, seminar, symposia, some sort of daily activities to keep people going, a huge amount of merchandising. The idea is to make, I believe, Lothal, Sabarmati and Ahmedabad and Sardar Patel statue and all,
Kevadia,
as
all
a
in one.
part of a great tourism triangle, so people can come in and go. So that's really good, and I believe it's making good progress, sir. But in addition to that, like you brought out, happily there are a lot of good small boutique museums, and that is interesting. There are these movements all over the country, may not always fructify, but at least there's some sort of interest. So I can recollect offhand in Diu, sir, there was, as it is, a memorial for the kukri.
Right.
Then the Navy sort of gave the INS Kukri, the second one after she was decommissioned, which has been birthed there. So the Diu administration has worked on that, and recently some people that I know, some of the agencies, MASDOC did a bit of CSR, and we have an agency in Mumbai called Maritime Museum, Mumbai Maritime Museum project people. So some of us, I'm a member of that, but few enthusiastic people, they work to make this INS Kukri museum. So now you walk around and you get a good idea of what all happened in various aspects of the Navy and all that. So visitors to Diu get an idea. Similarly, in Lucknow, you are aware, sir, after the Gomti was commissioned,
Right.
they're planning to come with a Gomti Sangralaya or museum there. There are also smaller ones. Recently, Great Eastern is doing, I mean, these are these small motivation halls or museum places where for their cadets who go into the merchant navy, they want to talk about how how India's merchant marine had this great past going back into many years. The Naval Aviation Museum in Goa is a
Yeah.
huge hit. I see a lot of people talking about it. Similarly, Vizag, the Kursura Museum,
As well
the
as the TU.
TU and the Harrier, and that forms a lovely triangle. The RK Beach, the Victory at Sea Memorial, and given that Vizag has these events often every 2 years, Milan, IFR, it's amongst the cleanest cities now. So it's getting a huge amount. I went there 2 years ago. Huge amount of crowds, very well managed, very orderly, very nice. Then Bombay itself, sir, I'm part of a committee. We want to bring out a maritime museum there. So there are efforts on probably Oyster Rock, maybe the place. Navy, I believe, is getting the place ready. It may take us a couple of years, but that's a great museum project. Bombay also, Kalyan Dombivli Municipal Corporation is planning on the Ulas River where old Shivaji's first, expedition and all that. They're planning along that. So there are quite a few projects happening or have happened, and those that are there are also sort of reinvigorating. The Naval Dockyard Heritage Hall, the Masdock Heritage Hall, all very good ones. Now our challenge is not in what we are creating, sir. We're creating very good thing. We have to tell it and sell
Right.
it.
So actually, it's very interesting what you mentioned. I mean, somewhere there has to be a centralized database,
Yes.
maybe a website. I don't know who can be the headmaster and who can own this. A Maritime Heritage of India, maybe a website where it will give you a listing of
Yes.
what all locations. Like I know here in Goa itself, you have a customs museum, the National Customs Museum, which has got immense amount of, because the customs is largely maritime. Of course, there are a few land borders also, but largely it is a maritime service. So what they've done, and it's quite an interesting museum to go and see. Right since the British times as to how it all evolved, and some items which they've caught, and anyway, it's a nice building to see. Then, like you mentioned in the shipyards, even HSL, they've got a
Yes.
lovely museum over there.
Yes. Yes. Sir. Absolutely, sir.
And maybe even there can be some sort of a directive to allow easy public access, because some of these museums are inside the premises of certain organizations. So either you have certain days, or some sort of a, with wide publicity, that people who want to come and see. It's good for the yard also, people get to know, the city gets to know as to their contribution to nation building, etc. What about things like, lighthouse tourism, or or even maritime forts? How can we sort of, there is some work happening over there, but isn't there a case to even take these forward?
Absolutely, sir. I mean, you said it like you mentioned HSL, started by that great Valchand Hirachan. This one, there is stuff there, but you also brought out problems of access, sir. So one thing is you flagged 2 or 3 issues. One is we do need a headmaster, whether it's Ministry of Shipping or someone maritime agency. I don't know whether NMF may like to
Yeah.
take this, or NMSC, which also has maritime
Yeah.
awareness, consciousness, or HRD ministry. But we certainly need a central listing, easy to refer, easy to access, a single window to sort of even do things like booking and all
Right.
that. Maybe we can outsource it to someone. The second is, how do we access if they are in, say, somewhat secure places? So we got to announce that this would be the day. Make sure it reaches out. The third, sir, is actually amplify much more. Like you brought out the Customs Museum. Now you have in Bombay, next to the Sailors Institute, you have that Uprising Memorial.
Okay.
It was built by the Navy. It was meant for the public. But having done that, perhaps it's not in Navy's charter, perhaps it's Ministry of Tourism, Culture, whatever it is. People pass by that without knowing, whereas it marks a very important chapter in India's freedom struggle, in Bombay's history, and in a lot of other things. So perhaps again, different ways we can write about it, highlight that, use that as a background for some events and things like that. So that is obviously one. What we could also do, sir, is perhaps do more of these sort of walks and tourist trails,
Yeah.
and maybe light and sound shows around some of these things.
Like in Ross Island in
Like, absolutely,
yeah.
sir. Now, coming to lighthouse, I think even recently the Prime Minister had made a mention out of that. Forts. Now, the Maratha forts recently they've been given the status of UNESCO heritage, 12 or 13, of which about 4 or 5 are maritime ones. Suvarnadur, Vijayadur, Khanderi. So we certainly need to find a way to, having done this, how do we now ensure that more people go? I mean, after all, if there is traffic going to Elephant Islands from Gateway,
Why can't they go to Kanderi?
we have to find a way to go to Kanderi, to other maritimes, sell it, propagate it. Initially, again, maybe you need a celebrity endorsement, someone saying that I love going to this place, someone big, and then lighthouses too. I believe, sir, that my personal belief, a lot of them were made prohibited
A long time
a
back.
long time back.
Yeah.
Frankly, very irrelevant now. I think we need to make lots of lighthouses accessible to people, and that will bring. I mean, in fact, the novelty and often the majesty of lighthouses, their different characteristics. You can weave stories around that. Sir.
So I think in that respect, there is already stuff happening,
So,
and lighthouse tourism. I think there's a whole project also which is going on in the country. But I remember you mentioned Khanderi. As a young officer, I had gone to Khanderi when I was a young lieutenant. We had gone there for a sailing expedition,
yes.
and I was fascinated by seeing that lighthouse. I think it was built by the French.
So,
At that time, I think they just changed over from a paraffin-fired lamp to an electric lamp. But their rotating mechanism was
Was
still
the same.
on clockwork. You had a large weight, a counterweight that had to be wound up, once maybe every few days. And that would work, that would provide the energy to turn that thing in the evenings. It was really quite a fascinating piece of equipment.
it is, sir. And given the different kind of mechanisms that are there in different, you said yes, it is a work in progress after the kind of political push that was required. But often we have to, I mean, the execution on ground is still,
Weak, yeah.
um, it's a glass half full,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah.
for want of better word.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of ground already and some fascinating suggestions. I think the key one that I'm seeing over here is at least a sense of awareness where you have a centralized repository,
Yes.
because that is a start point. And once you have that, then you can also, in a sense, see which areas of the coastline still have some potential. So that there's an even distribution right along our coastline in that sense, so that and some more attention can be given, maybe some assistance to certain states or UTs to stand up something over there. But that requires a mapping exercise firstly and a repository.
Absolutely, sir. Mapping exercise, repository, um, single window digital access,
And a ticketing system.
ticketing
also, yeah.
system, making it easy. Maybe it requires us to
Yeah.
outsource to some good developers who have understanding with these. But it's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
recently, Bombay, it may not be the correct example, but for analogy's sake, they have harmonized now transportation in any means of transportation, like you do in most of foreign capitals. So whether you go by train, bus, metro, this, that, you have a common ticket. So like that, I think if we want to encourage maritime,
Yeah.
there must be a kind of maritime tourism card, maritime tourism. But sir, I mean, see, lots of clubs in Bombay also don't coordinate amongst themselves. There's a bit of siloization and clannishness in our approach. So that needs to change.
So I think we're running short of time right now. So any last words you'd like to sort of share with our viewers on what we've discussed about, or anything beyond?
So, I think there is a lot at the end of the day that is happening, and the Navy has done good work bringing out books, things like that. But one, of course, we need our universities, academic bodies, and all. Like, I often tell schools that instead of going to SL word, I mean, with no disrespect, and why don't you take your children out on a fishing boat and venture out into the seas? That you must go and have that. No, you remember the senior Admiral Natkani saying that in India people go to the beaches not to wet their feet but to eat bhilpuri. No. So we also need the people to, in one sense, sir, our country is actually uh, is this fantastic creature which converts landlocked people into sailors in the Navy. Most of our strength of seafarers and all still comes
To the
from
north,
landlocked.
yeah.
But on the other, you need given peninsula, given history, given even security dynamics. I think a greater tacking to the seas
Yeah.
is very much required, and it needs probably all of us to do that. Sir.
So it remains for me to thank you again, Srikant, for spending time on Double M Dialogues, and a very interesting conversation, and look forward to taking some of your suggestions forward, and also look forward to many such interactions in the future.
Look forward, sir, and wonderful to be here. And I must say that this dialogue is one of the parts of outreach that happens. And hats off to you for doing this.
Thank you, Srikant.
Thank you.